The house felt different after the funeral. The walls that once echoed with laughter now seemed to listen in silence, as if absorbing every word spoken inside them. The adult children gathered in the living room, sitting where they hadn't sat together in years. The air smelled of old furniture, dust, and a catty their mother had brewed out of habit, though no one touched it. Outside, the late afternoon sun slid slowly down the windows, casting long shadows that made the room feel even smaller. Their mother sat slightly apart, on the edge of her old armchair. Her back was bent, her hands thin and trembling, folded carefully in her lap. Sh wore the same dark dress Sh had worn since the funeral, washed and pressed each night with quiet care. Her eyes moved from one child to another, but Sh said nothing. Sh had learned long ago that silence was safer. We can't keep pretending, the eldest son finally said, breaking the tension. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice firm and practical. The house is too big, maintenance costs money, and none of us live here anymore. His sister nodded immediately, her lips tightening. And what is Sh going to do here alone? It is not safe. Sh forged stings. Yesterday Sh almost burned the pot. I didn't, the old woman whispered, but her voice was so soft it barely reached them. We're not blaming you, Mom, another son added impatiently. We're just being realistic. The word, realistic, hung in the air like a verdict. Papers were placed on the table, printouts from real estate websites, notes about nursing homes, phone numbers circled in pen. The children spoke quickly now, feeding off each other's certainty. They talked about market prices, convenience, distance, responsibilities. They talked as if the woman in the chair were already absent. So we sell the house, the eldest concluded. Split the money, and we place her in a good facility. They'll take care of her better than we can. A bogадельня, the sister said bluntly, shrugging. Let us call things by their names. The word cut through the room. The mother's fingers tightened around her handkerchief. For a moment, Sh closed her eyes. In her mind, Sh saw her late husband repairing the roof with his own hands, planting the apple tree in the yard, measuring the door from to mark the children's heights year after year. This house was not just walls, it was alive. But Sh did not interrupt. We'll visit, one of them added, less confidently. Of course we will. When? Sh asked quietly. The children paused. No one answered immediately. Someone coughed. Someone looked at their phone. Finally, the eldest said, Mom, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Sh slowly raised her head. Her eyes were teary, but clear. I won't, Sh said. I only ask for one day. One day, the sister repeated, surprised. For what? To say goodbye, the mother replied. To the house. To things that matter only to them. That is unnecessary, the son muttered. But Finn, one day won't change anything. The decision was made just like that. Cold, efficient, irreversible. The children stood up, already discussing who would call the realtor and who would look up car homes. Chairs scraped against the floor. Coats were pulled on. Life moved on. The mother remained seated. When the door finally closed behind them, the house seemed to exhale. Sh sat alone in the quiet, listening to the ticking clock on the wall. Slowly, with effort, Sh stood and walked from room to room. Sh touched the doorframes, the faded wallpaper, the photographs still hanging where they had always been. Her fingers lingered on each surface, as if memorizing it. That night, Sh did not cry. Instead, Sh opened an old wooden chest hidden beneath the bed. Inside were letters, documents, photographs, and a carefully folded folder Sh had not opened in years. Sh placed everything neatly on the table. One day, Sh whispered to the empty house. That is all I need. And somewhere deep within those walls, something long forgotten was about to awaken. Morning arrived quietly, as if the house itself was trying not to disturb her. Pale light filtered through the thin curtains, settling on the table where the papers lay neatly stacked. The old woman rose before dawn, her joints aching but her movements steady with purpose. Sh washed her face, braided her thinning grey hair, and put on a clean dress, the one Sh is saved for days that mattered. Taddy mattered. Sh brewed tea and sat at the table, opening the folder Sh he had taken from the chest. Inside were yellowed letters, official seals, and photographs whose edges had softened with time. Sh touched each item gently, her lips moving as if in silent conversation with the past. This was not preparation born of fear, but of resolve. By mid-morning, the first knock sounded at the door. A tall man in a dark coat stood on the porch, holding a leather briefcase. "Good morning," he said politely. "I'm here at your request." "You're on time," Sh replied, stepping aside to let him in. Her voice was calm, almost warm. They sat in the living room, the man opening documents and adjusting his glasses. He glanced at her with a hint of curiosity. "Are your children joining us?" "No," Sh answered simply. "This is something I must begin alone." An hour later, another visitor arrived, a woman with kind eyes and a familiar smile. Sh embraced the old woman gently, calling her by name, thanking her for something that made no sense to an outsider. They spoke softly, but emotion lingered in every word. Then another knock, and another. By noon, the house no longer felt empty. People come quietly, respectfully, an elderly man leaning on a cane, a young couple holding hands nervously, a middle-aged woman with tearful eyes. Each greeted the old woman not with pity, but with gratitude. They spoke of moments long past, a night when someone was given shelter, a loan never asked to be repaid, a hand held during despair. The house listened as these stories filled its rooms. When the children returned in the afternoon, their irritation was immediate. "What is going on here?" the eldest demanded, stopping short in the doorway. The living room was full. Chairs had been pulled from other rooms. Cups of tea rested on every surface. Conversations fell silent as all eyes turned toward the newcomers. "We have guests," the mother said calmly. "Guests," the sister repeated sharply. "For what?" "We agreed. I asked for one day," the old woman reminded her. "Today is that day." The tall man in the dark coat stood. "I am the notary," he said, offering a slight nod. "We have an appointment." The children exchanged confused looks. "A notary," one son echoed. "For what?" Before anyone could answer, the elderly man with the cane slowly rose. "Your mother saved my life," he said, voice shaking but strong. "Years ago, when I had nowhere to go, Sh opened this door to him." The young woman spoke next. "Sh paid for my studies. I was a stranger. Sh took my child in for 3 months," another added. "Didn't ask a single question." Each voice was different, but the message was the same. The children stood frozen, unable to interrupt, unable to dismiss what they were hearing. Their mother sat quietly among them, hands folded, eyes lowered, as if these stories were not about her at all. "You never told us any of this," the sister said, her voice cracking despite herself. "There was no need," the mother replied. "Good deeds are not debts." The notary cleared his throat. "If everyone is present, we can proceed." The eldest opened his mouth to protest, but for the first time that day, words failed him. The house, once heavy with judgment, now held something else entirely. Something that could not be sold, measured, or sent away. And the day was far from over. The room grew quieter as the notary placed his briefcase on the table. Even the clock seemed to tick more softly, as if aware of the weight of the moment. The children remained standing near the door, unwilling to sit or leave, their earlier confidence eroded by the presence of so many strangers who clearly belonged here more than they did. The notary adjusted his glasses and opened a thick folder stamped with official seals. "I will read only what concerns study," he said calmly. "Everything here has been legally prepared and registered." The eldest son finally found his voice. "Prepared by whom?" "By your father," the notary answered. "And confirmed by your mother." A murmur passed through the room. The children exchanged quick, uneasy glances. "This house," the notary continued, "is not solely family property in the sense you believe. Many years ago, your parents placed it under a special legal status. What kind of status? The sister demanded, crossing her arms. A protected trust, the notary replied. Its purpose is charitable and social support. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. You can't do that without telling us, one of the sons said sharply. The old woman lifted her eyes for the first time and looked at him steadily. We did not need permission to be kind. The notary resumed. According to these documents, the house cannot be sold, transferred, or divided without the direct and willing consent of the trustee. And who is that? The eldest asked, to something in his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Your mother, the notary said. The words landed slowly, sinking in one by one. The children had built their plans on the assumption that ash meant weaknesses, silence meant surrender. They had mistaken pathiness for powerlessness. But what about us? The sister asked, her voice now tight with panic. Where the hairs? You are named, the notary confirmed. Each of you will receive an equal share. Relief flickered across their faces, brief, premature. Of the remaining personal assets, he added. Which are modest. How modest? Someone whispered. The notary glanced down. Your parents believed inheritance should reflect values, not blood alone. The majority of assets were allocated to the trust supporting individuals you see here. A low sound escaped the eldest son, somewhere between a low and a gasp. So that's it. Nothing false. The elderly man with the cane stood again, leaning heavily but speaking with dignity. SH gave us dignity when no one else did, he said. You were driving something to. You just didn't notice. Anger flared. This is manipulation, the sister snapped. You embarrassed us on purpose. The old woman's voice was quiet, but it carried. I asked for one day. You gave it to him. The notary closed the folder gently. There is one more point, he said. Your mother has decided to stay down as trustee. The room stirred. And who replaces her? The eldest asked quickly. SH has already chosen, the notary replied. All eyes turned to the middle-aged woman seated near the window, the one who had spoken earlier of a child taken in without question. SH froze, shaking her head in disbelief. I cannot, SH began. You can, the old woman said softly. You already do. Tears streamed down the woman's face as SH nodded. The sister took a step forward. And our mother, SH asked, almost pleading now. What happened to her? The old woman rose slowly from her chair. Everyone stood instinctively, as if in a courtroom. SH looked at her. Children really looked at them, for the first time in years. I am not going to a nursing home, SH said calmly. I have been invited somewhere else. Where? One of them asked, barely audible. To a place where I am not a burden, SH replied. Where I am wanted. The words cut deeper than any accusation. The notary packed his papers. The guests began to rise, some approaching the old woman to embrace her, others offering quiet words of thanks. The children remained rooted to the floor, surrounded by the consequences of their own decision. The house had not been sold. The old woman had not been discarded. But something else had been irreversibly lost, and everyone in the room felt it. The evening light faded slowly, washing the rooms in soft gray tones. One by one, the guests began to leave, each stopping to say goodbye to the old woman. Some kissed her hand, others embraced her gently, careful of her fragile frame. They thanked her again, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a sincerity that stayed in the air long after the door closed behind them. With every farewell, the children felt the space around them grow heavier, as if the house itself were measuring their silence. When the last visitor was gone, the living room felt unfamiliar. The chairs were still out of place, empty cups stood on the table, and the smell of tea lingered. The old woman moved slowly, gathering the cups, wiping the table, restoring order out of habit rather than need. No one offered to help. The children watched, young what role remained for them. The eldest finally spoke. You could have told us. SH paused, holding a cloth in her hand. You never asked, SH replied gently. The simplicity of the answer left no room for argument. A car pulled up outside. The sound of its engine broke the tension. The old woman set the cloth aside and went to the bedroom. SH returned carrying a small, worn suitcase, the same one SH had used decades ago on family trips. It was light. SH had not taken much. "You're really leaving," the sister said, her voice unsteady. "Yes. Where will you live?" Anna asked. "With people who call em by my name, not by my age," SH answered. They followed her to the door. The house creaked under their footsteps, as if protesting or perhaps remembering. SH stopped on the threshold and turned back one last time. Her gaze moved slowly across the familiar walls, the photographs, the faded carpet. Then SH looked at her children. "This house raised you," SH said quietly. "I hope it teaches you something still." No one stopped her. No one knew how. SH stepped outside. The door closed softly behind her, not slammed, not locked, just closed, like the end of a chapter. Days passed. The children returned to their routines, but nothing felt the way it had before. The plan to sell the house collapsed under legal reality. The money they had counted on no longer existed. But worse than that was the absence of a voice they had ignored for years. Phone calls went unanswered. Messages remained unread. The house chunked. It was no longer theirs, not in the way they had assumed. Volunteers came and went. Later returned, different but real. The apple tree in the yard was cared for. Light filled the windows again. Honest, the eldest drove past late at night. He stopped the car across the street and watched. People sat at the table where they had honest passed judgment. They listened. They mattered. Far away, in a smaller but warmer place, the old woman woke each morning without fear of being unwanted. SH drank tea with people who valued her presence, not her property. SH told stories. SH lied. SH slept peacefully. SH did not hate her children. SH did not curse them. SH simply released them. And that, more than losing the house, was their true inheritance.